frequency tables, relative frequency tables, and bar graphs. The following data represent the modes of transportation to campus of 20 students in a math course. Construct a frequency table, a relative frequency table, and a bar graph for the data. Here we're given a data set that represents the modes of transportation of college students. And the data set consists of words such as car, bike, skateboard, walk, or bus. Now, we're going to create a frequency table, and a frequency table is just a chart where one column lists the different values of the data set. So in this case, it would list the different modes of transportation. And then the second column represents the frequencies of the values in the set. So if we look here, we have a chart. And the first column lists our values, which is the modes of transportation. And notice we just list the different types of transportation. We have walk, bike, car, skateboard, and the bus. Now for our second column, we want to count the number of times each value appears in our data set, and that's going to be our frequency. First, we're going to count the number of times walk appears in the data set. So I'll just go through my list, and I have walk appearing once, twice, 3 times, and 4 times. So my frequency for walk is 4. Now I'm going to identify the number of times that bike appears in the set. So I have 1, 2, and 3 students that selected bike. So that means my frequency is 3. Next, we're going to identify the number of times car appears in the set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So car appears 6 times. Next, I'll go on to the skateboard. And skateboard appears 1, 2 times. So my frequency is 2. And then lastly, I'll highlight the number of times that bus appears in the data set. So this appears 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So my frequency for bus is 5. And this chart is our frequency table. Now we always want to check, just do a quick check by adding up the frequencies. So 4 plus 3 plus 6 plus 2 plus 5. And the sum of all the frequencies should be equal to the number of items in the data set. And in this case, we should have 20 items in the set. And when we add those numbers together, we do get 20, which is our total. So we know that we identified the correct amount of values in the set. Okay, now that we've listed our frequency table, we're going to draw a relative frequency table. And a relative frequency table provides the number of times a value occurs as a decimal. So all we do is we look at our frequency table that we found above, and we're going to divide the frequency of each value by the total of frequencies. So to find the relative frequency for walk, I just take my frequency, which was 4, and then divide it by the total, which was 20. And 4 divided by 20 is 0.2, so my relative frequency is just 0.2. Now I'll do the same with bike. So I take the frequency, which was 3, and then I divide by the total, which is 20. and 3 divided by 20 is 0.15. Next, we'll look at car. The frequency for car was 6, and 6 divided by 20 is 0.3. And then skateboard, the frequency for skateboard was 2, so 2 divided by 20 is 0.1. And then the frequency for bus was 5, so 5 divided by 20 is 0.25. So these decimals in the second column represent the relative frequency, and when we add these decimals together, we should always get a total of 1. And when we add these decimals together, we do get 1. So this is our answer for the relative frequency table. Lastly, we're asked to create a bar graph of the data, and we're going to use the relative frequency table we previously found to make our bar graph. Notice that the modes of transportation are listed on the horizontal axis of the graph, and then the frequencies, or a scale for the frequencies, are listed on the vertical axis. To draw your bar graph, first you're going to locate the first mode of transportation, which is walk. And on the walk place on your horizontal axis, you're going to draw a bar to the 0.2 frequency. So that means I'm going to go up to 0.2 on my vertical axis, and I'm just going to shade in a bar. Next, I'm going to look at bike, and I'll shade bike at a 0.15 frequency. So that will be in between these two lines here. And this small tick mark represents the halfway point between point 1 and point 2. So that's why I drew the bar between those two gray lines. Next we have car at 0.3. So that would be up here. And then skateboard is at 0.1. So that will be my first gray line here. And then bus is at 0.25. And that will be in the middle of point 2 and point 3, which is about here. Okay, so this is my bar graph, and this bar graph represents the data in the relative frequency table. And that completes the entire question.